Lemony Snicket, Love and Friends. We're going to continue with chapter 6 today. This is not a tale of Lemony Snicket. It is useless to tell the Snicket story because it happened so very long ago, and because there's nothing anybody can do about the way it turned out. So the only reason I could possibly have for jotting it down in the margins of these pages would be to make this book even more unpleasant, unnerving, and unbelievable than it already is. This is a story about Violet Klaus and Sonny Baudelaire. And how they discovered something in the Library of Records at Himmlish Hospital that changed their lives forever and still gives me the heebie-jeebies whenever I'm alone at night. Stop. But if this were a book about me, instead of about the three children who would soon run into someone they had hoped never to see again, I might pause for a moment and tell you about something I did many years ago that still troubles me. It feels to me like he's going to. Okay, let's see. It was a necessary thing to do, but it was not a nice thing. And even now, I get a small quiver of shame in my stomach whenever I remember it. I might be doing something I enjoy, walking along the promenade deck of a ship, or looking through a telescope at the aurora borealis, or wandering into a bookstore and placing my books on the highest place in the shelf so that no one will be tempted to buy and read them. When I will suddenly remember this thing I did and think to myself, was it really necessary? Was it absolutely necessary to steal that sugar bowl from Esme Squalor? The Baudelaire orphans were experimenting. Yes, they were experimenting. They were experiencing similar quivers that afternoon as they finished up the day's work in the Library of Records. Every time Violet put a pile in the proper place, she would feel her hair ribbon in her pocket and get a quiver in her stomach as she thought about what she and her siblings were up to. Klaus would take a stack of papers from the basket in front of the deposit chute, and instead of placing the paper clips in the small bowl, he would keep them hidden in his hand, feeling a quiver in his stomach as he thought about the trick he and his sisters were going to play. And whenever Hal turned his back and Klaus passed the paper clips to Sonny, the youngest Baudelaire felt a quiver in her stomach as she thought about the sneaky way they were going to return to the Library of Records that night. By the time Hal was locking up the file cabinets for the day with his long loop of keys, the three Baudelaire children had enough quivers in their stomachs to attend a quivery stomach festival, if there had been one in the area that afternoon. It is absolutely necessary to do this, Violet murmured to Klaus as the three children followed Hal out of the library into the anteroom. She took her hair ribbon out of her pocket and smoothed it out, making sure it didn't have any tangles. It's not a nice thing to do. I know, Klaus answered, holding his hand out so Sonny could hand back the paper clips. I have a quiver in my stomach just thinking about it. But it's the only way we can get our hands on that file. Hola, Sonny said grimly. She meant before Matthias gets his hands on us. And as soon as she was finished with her sentence, Matthias's scratchy voice came over the intercom. Attention, attention, the voice said, as Hal and the Baudelaires looked up at the square speaker. This is Matthias, the new head of Human Resources. Inspections are over for the day, but we'll continue tomorrow. What nonsense, Hal muttered, putting the loop of keys down on the table. The Baudelaires looked at one another and then at the keys as Matthias continued his announcement. Also, the speaker said, if anyone is in the hospital that has any valuables of any kind, please bring them to the Human Resources office for safekeeping. Thank you. My eyeglasses are somewhat valuable, Hal said, taking them off, but I'm not going to bring them to the Human Resources office. I might never see them again. That's probably true, Violet said, shaking her head at Matthias's audacity, a word which here means attempt to steal valuables from hospital employees, in addition to snatching the Baudelaire fortune. Besides, Hal said, smiling at the children and reaching for his coat, nobody is going to steal anything from me. You three are the only people I see at the hospital, and I trust you absolutely. Now, where did I put my keys? Here they are, Violet said, and the quiver in her stomach got worse. She held up her hair ribbon which had been tied into a circle to look like a loop of string. Hanging from the ribbon was a long row of paper clips, which Sunny had fashioned into different shapes with her teeth when Hal wasn't looking. The result looked something like Hal's loop of keys. The way a horse looks something like a cow, or a woman in a green dress looks something like a pine tree. But there was no way anyone would look at Violet's hair ribbon, full of chewed up paper clips, and think it was a ring of keys. Unless, of course, their eyesight was not what it used to be. The three children waited as Hal squinted at what Violet was holding. "Those are my keys," Hal said doubtfully. Oh, let's try that again. "Those are my keys?" Hal said doubtfully. "I thought I put them down on the table." Oh no, Klaus said quickly, standing in front of the table so Hal wouldn't catch a glimpse of his real keys. "Violet has them." "Here," Violet said, moving them back and forth so they would be even harder to squint at. "Why don't I put them in your coat pocket for you?" Thank you," Hal said as Violet dropped them into her overcoat pocket. Into his overcoat pocket. He looked at the Baudelaires, his tiny eyes shining with gratitude. "That's another way you three have helped me. My eyesight's not what it used to be, so I'm glad I can rely on such good volunteers." "Well, good night, children. I'll see you tomorrow." "Good night, Hal," Klaus replied. "We're just going to have one last piece of fruit here in the anteroom." "Don't spoil your dinner," Hal said. "It's supposed to be a very cold evening, so I bet your parents have cooked up a nice hot meal." Hal smiled and shut the door behind him, leaving the children alone with the real keys to the Library of Records and the quivery feelings still in their stomachs. "Someday," Violet said quietly, "we'll apologize to Hal for playing a trick on him and explain why we had to break the rules. This wasn't a nice thing to do, even though it was necessary. And we'll return to the Last Chance General Store," Klaus said, "and explain to the shopkeeper why we had to run away." "Twisp," Sunny said firmly, which meant, "but not until we get a hold of the file, solve all these mysteries, and prove our innocence." "Oh, you're right, Sunny," Violet said with a sigh. "Let's get started. Klaus, see if you can find the right key for the library door." Klaus nodded and carried Hal's keys over to the door. Not too long ago, when the Baudelaires had been staying with Aunt Josephine by the shores of Lake Latrumose, Klaus had been in a situation in which he had to match up a key to a locked door very, very quickly. And since then, he had been good at it. He had gotten quite good at it. He looked at the lock of the door, which had a very short and narrow keyhole, and then looked at the loop of string, which had one very short and narrow key. And in no time at all, the children were re-entering the Library of Records and looking down the dim aisles of file cabinets. "I'm going to lock the door behind us," Klaus said, "so that nobody will get suspicious if they happen to walk into the anteroom." "Like Matthias," said Violet with a stutter. "On the intercom, he said that they were stopping the inspections for the day, but I bet he's really still looking." "Peppy," Sunny said, which meant, "then let's hurry." "Let's start with the S aisle," Violet said for Snicket. "Right," Klaus said, locking the door with a rattle. The three children found the S aisle and began walking past the file cabinets, reading the labels on them to figure out which one to open. "Sauce to sassafrage," Klaus read out loud. "That means that anything that falls alphabetically between the word sauce and the word sassafrage will be in this cabinet. That would be fine if we wanted to the sawmill file or the sauna file," Violet said. "Let's move on." The children moved on, their footsteps echoing off the low ceilings of the room. "Scarab!" Oh, it's Klaus saying this. Sorry, I thought it was a baby for a second. "Scarab to scavenger," Klaus said, reading one further down the aisle. Sunny and Violet shook their heads, and the Baudelaires kept moving. "Secretary to settlement," Violet read. "We're still not there." "Calm, Sunny," said Sunny. Oh, let's do it Sunny style. "Calm," said Sunny, which meant, "I can't read very well, but I think this one says sequel to Serenity." "You're right, Sunny," Klaus said, smiling at his sister. "It's the wrong one." "Shed to Sheepshank," Violet read. "Shellac to Sherbert," Klaus read, walking further down the aisle. "Shipwreck to Shrimp." "Sicily to Sideways." "Skylight to Slob." sludge to smoke, snack to snifter, snowball to sober, sonnet to spackle. Wait, Klaus said, back up. Snicket is between snack and snifter. You're right, Violet said, stepping back to find the right cabinet. I was so distracted by all the strange file names that I forgot what we were looking for. Here it is, snack to snifter. Let's hope the file we're looking for is in here. Klaus looked at the lock on the file cabinet and found the right key on Hal's loop on only the third try. It should be in the bottom drawer, Klaus said, close to snifter. Let's look. The Baudelaires looked. A snifter is a type of glass, usually meant for holding brandy, although it is also the term for strong wind. Plenty of words are close to snifter. In the alphabet, page turn. And the children found many of them. There was a file on sniffing, which seemed to have many photographs of noses. There was a file on Schnell's law, which stated that a ray of light passing from one uniform medium to another produces an identical ratio between the sine of the angle of incidence and the sine of the angle of refraction, which Klaus already knew. Of course he did. There was a file on the inventor of the sneaker, whom Violet admired very much, and one on snicking, which is something Sunny had done many times with her teeth. But there was not a single scrap of paper marked Snicket. The children sighed in disappointment and shut the drawer of the file cabinet so Klaus could lock it again. Let's try the J aisle for Jack, Violet suggested. Shh, Sunny said. No, Sunny, Klaus said gently. I don't think the H aisle is a good bet. Why would Hal have filed it under H? Shh, Sunny insisted, pointing at the door, and her siblings knew instantly that they had misunderstood her. Usually when Sunny said shh, she meant something along the lines of, I think the H aisle might be a good place to look for that file. But this time she meant something more along the lines of, be quiet. I think I hear someone walking into the anteroom of the Library of Records. Sure enough, when the Baudelaires listened closely, they could hear the clomping of some odd, teetering footsteps, as if someone were walking on very thin stilts. The footsteps grew closer and closer and then stopped. And as the three children held their breath, the door to the library rattled as someone tried to open the door. Maybe it's Hal, Violet whispered, trying to unlock the door with a paperclip. Maybe it's Matthias, Klaus whispered, looking for us. Janitor, Sunny whispered. Well, whoever it is, Violet said, we'd better hurry to the J aisle. The Baudelaires tiptoed across the low-ceilinged room to the J aisle and walked down it quickly, reading the labels of the file cabinet. Jabberwocky to Jackal, Jacket to Jack-o'-lanterns, Naresay. That's it, Klaus whispered. Jack will be in Jacqueline to Jacutinga. We hope, Violet said. As the door rattled again, Klaus hurried to find the right key, and the children opened the drawer to look for Jack. As Violet knew, Jacqueline is a kind of rope used in sailing, and Klaus knew Jacutina is a sort of gold-bearing iron, or found in Brazil. And once again, there were plenty of files between these two. But although the children found information on jack-o'-lanterns, Jack Russell Terriers, and Jacobean drama, there was no file marked Jack. Fire! Klaus whispered. It's not Sunny. Fire! Klaus whispered, shutting and locking the file cabinet. Let's head to the F aisle. And hurry, Violet said. It sounds like the person in the anteroom is picked the lock. It was true. The Baudelaires paused for a moment and heard a muffling scratching from behind the door, as if something long and thin were being stuck in the keyhole to try to unlock the lock. Violet knew from when she and her siblings lived with Uncle Monty that the lockpick can often take a long time to work properly, even if it has been made by one of the world's greatest inventors. By the children But the children nonetheless moved to the F-aisle as fast as their tiptoes could carry them. Baby into fact, fainting to things, fatalism to Faulkner, fear to Vermont, ficus to filth, fin de siècle to fizzle. Here it is! Once more the Baudelaires hurried to find the proper key, and then the proper drawer, and then the proper file. Fin de siècle is a term for a time in history when a century is drawing to a close, and fizzle is a fancy word for a rustling noise, like the one that continued to come from behind the locked door as the children looked frantically for fire. But the papers went right from Finland to firmament without a single word on fire in between. What will we do? Violet asked as the door began to rattle again. Where else could the file be? Let's try to think, Klaus said. What did Hal say about the file? We know it has to do with Jack Snicket and with fire. Prim, Sonny said, which meant, but we looked under Snicket, Jack, and fire already. There must be something else, Violet said. We have to find that file. It has crucial information about Jack Snicket and VFD. And about us, Klaus said. Don't forget that. The three children looked at one another. Baudelaire, Sonny whispered. Without another word, the orphans ran to the B aisle and hurried past Babbitt to Babylon, Bacteria to Ballet, and Bamboo to Baskerville. Oh, Baskerville, stopping at Bat Mitzvah to Bavarian Cream, as the door continued to fizzle behind them. Klaus tried 9 keys in a row before finally opening the cabinet. There, between the Jewish coming-of-age ceremony for a young woman and the delicious filling of certain donuts, the children found a folder marked Baudelaire. It's here, Klaus said, taking it out of the drawer and with trembling hands. What does it say? What does it say? Violet asked in excitement. Look, Klaus said. There's a note on the front. Read it, Sonny said in a frantic whisper. As the door began to shake violently on the hinges, whoever was on the other side of that door was obviously getting frustrated with trying to pick the lock. Klaus held up the file so he could see what the note said in the dim light of the room. All 13 pages of the Snicket file, he read, have been removed from the Library of Records for the official investigation. He looked up at his sisters, and they could see that behind his glasses his eyes were filling with tears. That must be when Hal saw our picture, he said, when he removed the file and gave it to the official investigators. He dropped the file on the floor and then sat down beside in despair. There's nothing here. Yes, there is, Violet said. Look. The Baudelaires looked at the file where Klaus had dropped it on the ground. There behind the notes was a single sheet of paper. It's page 13, Violet said, looking at the number typed in the corner of the page. The investigators must have left it behind by mistake. That's why you should keep paper clips on papers that belong together, Klaus said, even when you file them. But what does the paper say? With a long crackle and a loud bang, the door to the Library of Records was knocked off its hinges and fell to the floor of the enormous room as if it had fainted. But the children paid no attention. Violet, Klaus, and Sonny all sat and looked at page 13 of the file, too amazed to even listen to the odd teetering footsteps as the intruder entered the room and began to walk along the aisles of the file cabinets. Page 13 of the Baudelaire file was not a crowded sheet of paper. There was just one photograph stapled into the page, below one sentence of type. But sometimes it takes only a photograph and a sentence to make an author cry himself to sleep even years after the photograph was taken, or to make 3 siblings sit and stare at the page for a long, long time, as if an entire book were printed on one page of paper. There were 4 people in the photograph. I skipped a page. Standing together outside a building, the Baudelaires recognized immediately. It was 667 Dark Avenue, where the orphans had lived with Jerome and Esme Squalor for a brief time, until it became another place too treacherous for the children to stay. The first person in the photograph was Jock Snicket, who was looking at the photographer and smiling. Standing next to Jock was a man who was turned away from the camera, so the children could not see his face, only one of his hands, which was clutching a notebook and pen, as if the scared man were a writer of some sort. The children had not seen Jack Snicket since he were murdered, of course. And the writer appeared to be someone they had never seen at all. But standing next to these two people were another two people the Baudelaire children thought they would never see again. Bundled up in long coats, looking cold but happy, were the Baudelaire parents. Because of the evidence discussed on page 9, read the sentence above the photograph. Experts now suspect that there may, in fact, be one survivor of the fire, but the survivor's whereabouts are unknown. All right, that is the end of chapter 6. We'll continue with chapter 7 on our very next video. Thank you.